Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the Evolution Review. Evolution tonight was from the State Farm Arena in Atlanta, Georgia. And what a crazy weekend this has been for us pro wrestling fans. We had NXT Great American Bash and AEW All in Texas and Saturday night's main event all yesterday. And I watched Saturday night's main event, and I thought it was a very predictable show, in my opinion. But going into Evolution tonight, the show just ended, and this was a great show tonight. This is WWE's best PLE of the year. And in my opinion, this show was better than WrestleMania this year. And this show was miles better than Evolution 2018. Just WWE hit it out of the park tonight. They hit a home run with this show. But the card tonight for Evolution, we had the Women's Intercontinental Championship on the line, where Becky Lynch defended the title against Bayley and Lyra Valkyria. The NXT Women's Championship was on the line, where Jayne defended the title against Jordynne Grace. We had the Fatal 4-Way Tag Team match for the Women's Tag Team Championship, where we had Raquel and Roxanne Perez defending the titles against Ruca and Zaria from NXT, the Kabuki Warriors, Asuka and Kairi Sane, and Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair. We had the Women's Championship on the line, where Tiffany Stratton defended the title against WWE Hall of Famer and legend Trish Stratus. We had a no-holds-barred match, Jade Cargill versus Naomi, with Bianca Belair as the special guest referee. We also had a Evolution Battle Royal, where the winner will get a championship match at Clash in Paris. And the main event, we had the Women's World Championship on the line, where Io Sky defended the title against Rhea Ripley. And we had a surprise that happened in that match, which I will get to explaining when I get to it. But overall, Evolution, great show tonight. This is the best WWE PLE of the year. This was, by far, a thumbs-up show. But let's jump right into the review. Evolution kicked off tonight with the Women's Intercontinental Championship on the line. Becky Lynch defended the title against Bayley and Lyra Valkyria. Triple threat match. And this was a very good match to open the show. The match started off hot, and then it progressed to, getting good later on. And Becky Lynch, Bayley, and Lyra Valkyria, they had really good chemistry here in this match. Match got underway. We had all three women on their feet. Bayley delivered a forearm onto Lyra, which knocked Lyra to the outside. Bayley and Becky stood in the ring. Becky held up the four fingers in reference to, the four horsewomen, when it was her, Bayley, Mercedes Moné when she was Sasha Banks, and Charlotte Flair. Bayley delivered a right hand to Becky. She delivered a back suplex to Becky, which Becky then rolled to the outside. Lyra then attacked Bayley from behind. Both Lyra and Bayley were exchanging right hands. Bayley rolled Lyra up, and Lyra ended up kicking out. Becky ended up coming in. Becky ended up rolling both Bayley and Lyra up, and both Bayley and Lyra end up kicking out. Becky then threw Lyra into Bayley. Lyra got up. She landed a crossbody onto Becky. She ended up going for the cover, and Becky kicked out. Lyra ended up grabbing Becky by her arms. Bayley then came in. She delivered a boot to Lyra's face. Bayley ran towards Lyra. Lyra moved out of the way, and Bayley went to the outside. Lyra ended up going for a dive to the outside, but she ended up getting caught by both Bayley and Becky. Bayley and Becky ended up slamming Lyra face first into the commentary table. Bayley and Becky stared at each other. They began to throw some right hands at one another. Bayley threw Becky back into the ring. Bayley got back into the ring, and Becky ended up kicking Bayley down. Becky went to the ropes, and she landed a baseball slide to Bayley. She was then on the ring apron. She delivered a flying punch from the ring apron onto Lyra. Becky got back to her feet. Bayley then delivered a drop kick to Becky under the bottom rope. Lyra got up, and she landed a crossbody off the ring apron onto Bayley on the outside. Lyra then went for a tornado DDT onto Becky, but Becky ended up throwing Lyra into the steel steps. Becky then grabbed Bayley and threw her into the barricade. She then delivered a suplex to Bayley into the barricade, which Bayley ended up tweaking her knee. Becky then threw Bayley into the ring. She went for the cover, and Bayley ended up kicking out. Bayley ended up going for a rose plant, but Becky ended up reversing that. Becky ended up going for the manhandle slam, but Lyra ended up delivering a double crossbody off the top rope onto both Becky and Bayley. Lyra then delivered some kicks onto Becky. Becky then grabbed Lyra's leg, and she ended up hitting Bayley with it. Lyra then delivered a kick to Becky's face, and she followed up with a suplex. Lyra ended up rolling through it, and she ended up landing a fisherman's buster. She ended up going for the cover, and Bayley, off the top rope, delivered the flying elbow, and Bayley then ended up placing Lyra on the top rope, and she ended up putting Lyra into the Tree of Woe. Bayley then stomped on Lyra. Becky then came in. Bayley delivered a sunset flip bomb, which slammed Becky down the corner onto Lyra. Bayley ended up going for the cover, and Becky kicked out. While Lyra was still in the Tree of Woe, Bayley delivered an elbow drop to Lyra. So Bayley ended up going for the cover, and Lyra ended up kicking out. At the end of the match, we had Lyra end up going for a kick to the side of Bayley's head, but Bayley ended up ducking, and she landed the rose plant on Lyra. Bayley ended up going for the cover, but Becky came in. She delivered a backslide cover onto Bayley. She pinned Bayley, and there you go. Becky Lynch ended up winning the match, retaining the Women's Intercontinental Championship. Overall, very good match this was. Good opening to start off the show. Very hot. And when I saw this match progress and it was just, very good and the crowd was into it, I knew we were going to be in for a pretty good show tonight. Becky retaining, is not bad, but it was very fun. Fun triple threat match. And then we had, some legends in the crowd. We saw Mark Henry. We saw Ava, NXT General Manager. And we saw Vicky Guerrero, who was on the mic. She did her famous, "Excuse me!" I was like, oh, God. So, yeah, they were in the crowd tonight. They were present. And then we had the NXT Women's Championship on the line. Jayne defend the title against Jordynne Grace. Jordynne Grace was accompanied by Blake Monroe, formerly known as Mariah May. Jayne was accompanied by Fallon Henley and Jasmine Nix. And this was a very good match here. Another good match. Jayne, I think she is, doing good as the NXT Women's Champion. I like Jayne. I like Jordynne Grace as well. I think she's very good in the ring. Match got underway. Jordynne Grace, right away, she went for a German suplex to Jacy, to which Jacy went to the outside. Jordynne Grace delivered a suicide dive to the outside to Jacy. She threw Jacy back into the ring. Grace ended up going for the cover, and Jacy kicked out. Grace ended up grabbing Jacy. Jacy delivered an elbow to Grace's face, and Grace went to the outside. Jacy was on the ring apron. She kicked Jordynne Grace in the face. Jacy then stood on top of Jordynne Grace and threw her back into the ring. Jacy went back into the ring, and she landed a swinging neck breaker to Jordynne Grace. So Jacy ended up going for the cover. Jordynne Grace kicked out. At this point in the match, Jacy distracted the ref. Fallon Henley ended up choking Jordynne Grace in the corner. Jacy ended up going for the cover, and Jordynne Grace ended up kicking out. Jacy then ended up locking in a chin lock on Jordynne Grace in the middle of the ring, but Jordynne Grace got to her feet, and she got out of the chin lock. Jordynne Grace delivered a spine buster to Jacy. So both women were down at this point in the match. Both Jacy and Jordynne end up getting to their feet. Jordynne Grace delivered a right hand to Jacy, but Jacy delivered some chops to Jordynne Grace's chest. Jacy ended up grabbing Jordynne Grace. Jordynne Grace delivered a kick to Jacy, and she ended up slamming Jacy into the corner. So Jordynne Grace then lifted Jacy up and slammed her face first onto the turnbuckle. Jordynne Grace delivered a folding powerbomb to Jacy. She ended up going for the cover, and Jacy kicked out. Jordynne Grace delivered a slam to Jacy. Jordynne ended up climbing the second turnbuckle. She ended up going for the Vader bomb, but Jacy moved out of the way. Jacy went for a kick. Jordynne Grace ducked the kick, and she ended up running to the ropes. But Jacy delivered a boot to her face. Jordynne was on the ring apron, and Jacy delivered a knee to Jordynne's face. So Jacy ended up hanging Jordynne up on the second rope. Jacy then delivered a swinging draping neck breaker. She went for the cover, and Jordynne Grace ended up kicking out. You had later on in the match where you had Jayne. She ordered Fallon Henley to grab the NXT Women's Championship, to which Fallon Henley ended up grabbing the title. So Jasmine Nix ended up getting on the ring apron, and she distracted the ref. Fallon Henley threw the championship in the ring, but Blake Monroe delivered a headbutt to Fallon Henley, and she ended up knocking Fallon Henley down. Jayne grabbed the title. The ref ended up grabbing the title from Jacy. Jordynne ended up rolling Jacy up. Jacy ended up kicking out. So Jasmine Nix ended up grabbing the championship on the outside. Blake Monroe ended up knocking Nix down. Blake Monroe ended up holding the championship. Fallon Henley ended up getting back on the ring apron, distracting the ref. Jacy threw Jordynne Grace to the ropes. Blake Monroe then ended up hitting Jordynne Grace with the championship. Jacy then delivered the rolling encore to Jordynne Grace, which is, of course, Jayne's finishing move. So Jacy ended up rolling Jordynne Grace up, and there you go. Jayne ended up winning the match, retaining the NXT Women's Championship. Post-match, Jayne, Fallon Henley, and Jasmine Nix looked all confused as to what just happened. So Blake Monroe got into the ring with the championship. She ended up handing the NXT Women's Championship to Jayne. Jayne was looking all confused by that. But pretty much that was basically that. But overall, very good match this was between Jacy and Jordynne Grace. Blake Monroe, I know that she was going to turn heel at some point. We've seen Blake Monroe, formerly known as Mariah May, when she was in AEW and how she played a good heel. She works better as a heel than a babyface. And I can't wait to see what is next that they're going to do for Blake Monroe. Maybe Blake Monroe will now join Jacy Jayne, Fallon Henley, and Jasmine Nix. Who knows? But yeah, really glad that they turned Blake Monroe heel. Because like I said, she works better as a heel than a babyface. And then we saw, a few other legends in attendance there. We saw Jazz. It's been a while since I've seen, Jazz. She was in WCW, and she then came to WWE later on. So she aged well, Jazz. We saw Jacqueline as well. Ivory was in attendance. Good to see Ivory. And also Maurice was in attendance with her two daughters. Which her two daughters have grown up fast. And they look like Miz. And then next, we had the Fatal 4-Way Tag Team match for the Women's Tag Team Championship. We had Ruca and Zaria versus the Kabuki Warriors, Asuka, Kairi Sane, versus Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss, versus Roxanne Perez and Raquel Rodriguez. They're defending the women's tag team titles. And this was an enjoyable match. Match got underway. Kairi Sane and Roxanne Perez started off the match. Perez delivered a slap to Kairi Sane's face. She threw Kairi to the ropes. Kairi ended up delivering a leg scissor takedown onto Perez. Kairi Sane followed up with a clothesline to Perez. She ended up going for the cover, and Perez ended up kicking out. Asuka tagged in, and the Kabuki Warriors knocked Ruca and Zaria off the ring apron. Ruca and Zaria, they are a very good tag team. If you watch them in NXT, very entertaining. I am a fan of both of them. Ruca's gimmick is awesome. Like a surfer gimmick that she has. Asuka and Kairi end up double teaming Roxanne Perez in the corner. Asuka laid in a hip attack onto Perez. Asuka ended up throwing Perez to the ropes. Raquel ended up tagging in. Raquel came in. She ended up throwing Kairi onto Asuka. Raquel ended up knocking Charlotte off the ring apron. And we had Raquel and Roxanne end up knocking Ruca and Zaria off the ring apron. Roxanne Perez ended up tagging back in, and they double teamed up on Asuka, both her and Raquel. Roxanne Perez went to the ropes. Asuka ended up kicking Perez away. Asuka went to the ropes. Perez then delivered a right hand to Asuka. Alexa Bliss ended up tagging in. Bliss delivered some right hands onto Perez, which was followed by double knees. Bliss ended up slapping Raquel down. Roxanne Perez delivered a poke to Alexa's eyes, and Zaria ended up tagging herself into the match. Which, at this point, when Alexa Bliss was in the ring, everybody was chanting, "We want Charlotte!" I was laughing at that. I'm like, really? They're chanting for Charlotte to get in there? We want Charlotte! Atlanta, I guess, was pro-Charlotte tonight. So Alexa ended up looking at Zaria. She ended up going for a chokeslam. But Zaria delivered a chokeslam of her own to Bliss. She ended up lifting Bliss up on her shoulders. She pressed Bliss, but Bliss ended up landing on her feet. Bliss delivered a chop to Zaria's leg. She went for the DDT, but it got blocked by Zaria. Zaria ended up reversing that into a vertical suplex. So Ruca ended up tagging herself in. Zaria ended up knocking Charlotte down. So Ruca ended up going for the cover, and Bliss ended up kicking out. So Ruca delivered a spinning slam to Alexa Bliss. She ended up going for a super kick, but Bliss blocked it. Bliss ended up kicking So Ruca in the face. Raquel ended up tagging herself in. Raquel ended up throwing Bliss in the corner, and she delivered a splash. Perez then tagged in, and Perez and Raquel ended up double teaming up on Bliss, but Charlotte was tagged in. Charlotte came in, delivered a crossbody off the top rope onto Raquel and Roxanne. Charlotte delivered some chops to both Raquel and Roxanne Perez. Charlotte ended up taking out both of them, and Charlotte then clotheslined Raquel to the outside. Perez ended up rolling Charlotte up from behind, but Charlotte kicked out. Perez went to the ropes, and Charlotte delivered a awful, horrendous spear, which she delivered the spear, and she did a flip. I'm like, what kind of spear was that? I don't want to see Charlotte do a spear ever again. It looked fucking awful. So Charlotte ended up going for the cover, and Roxanne Perez ended up kicking out. Charlotte went for the figure four on Perez, but Raquel broke it up. Asuka tagged herself in. She landed a drop kick off the top rope onto Raquel. Asuka ended up delivering some kicks onto Roxanne, and she went to the ropes. Kairi Sane tagged in. Kairi ended up going for the cover on Roxanne Perez, but Zaria broke up the pin. We had at one point where Zaria was going to spear Alexa Bliss. Charlotte ended up moving Bliss out of the way, and Zaria accidentally speared So Ruca. She took out her own partner, which was crazy. So, the end of the match, we had Raquel end up lifting Bliss up. She threw her onto the Kabuki Warriors, Asuka and Kairi Sane, and Zaria on the outside. Roxanne Perez delivered a suicide dive onto Charlotte on the outside. Raquel was in the ring with So Ruca. Raquel delivered the Tejada bomb onto So Ruca. She ended up going for the cover, and there you go. Raquel Rodriguez and Roxanne Perez win the match, and they still retain the Women's Tag Team Championship. Overall, enjoyable match it was. Obviously, I knew that Raquel and Roxanne were going to retain the titles. So, no surprise there. But, enjoyable match it was. And then we saw Tori Wilson, Melina, and Molly Holly. They were shown in attendance. It was good to see Tori Wilson again there. Good to see Melina. Was a fan of Melina back in the day when she was part of Eminem with John Morrison and Joey Mercury. Of course, they were former tag team champions. Melina, former women's champion. Also, Molly Holly, good to see her there. And then we had Tiffany Stratton versus Trish Stratus for the Women's Championship. This was not good, in my opinion. In my opinion, this was the weakest match on the show. Tiffany Stratton and Trish Stratus, there was no build for this. This was just booked on the fly. Just Tiffany Stratton was like, I want to face Trish Stratus. I want to face a Hall of Famer, a legend. And, yeah, weakest match on the card. Match got underway. Trish Stratus did a headlock takedown on Stratton, but Stratton ended up reversing it into a leg scissor. Trish in this match proves that she still got it. So Trish ended up getting out of the leg scissor, and she ended up blocking an armbar onto Stratton. Stratton ended up getting out of the armbar. Stratus delivered an arm drag to Stratton. Both women went to the ropes. Stratton delivered a drop kick to Stratus, which was followed up by a hip attack onto Trish's back. So Stratton ended up going for the cover. Trish ended up kicking out. Stratton delivered a snap suplex to Trish. Stratton then dragged Trish onto the ring apron. She ended up grabbing her, but Trish delivered a leg scissor, which dropped Stratton from the ring apron onto the floor. Trish then threw Stratton into the barricade. Fans were chanting, "You still got it," to Trish. Trish then threw Stratton back into the ring. Trish then delivered a spine buster to Stratton. She ended up going for the cover, and Stratton ended up kicking out. Trish got on the second rope and landed a tornado DDT to Stratton. She ended up going for the cover, and Stratton kicked out. Trish then delivered some chops to Stratton's chest. She ended up going for another chop, but Stratton ended up ducking the chop. Stratton delivered a chop, and both her and Trish delivered some right hands. Stratton ended up kicking Trish down into the corner. Stratton delivered a cartwheel back elbow to Trish. She then lifted Trish up for a suplex, and she dropped Trish back first into her knees. Stratton ended up climbing the top rope. She landed the swanton. She ended up going for the cover, and Trish ended up kicking out. Stratton then climbed to the top rope, but Trish delivered some right hands, and she slammed Stratton down to the canvas. Trish then delivered a kick to the side of Stratton's head, and Trish ended up going for the Stratusfaction, but Stratton ended up blocking it. Stratton then delivered a rolling senton, and she ended up going for the prettiest moonsault ever, and Stratus ended up getting her knees up. That led for Trish to hit the famous Stratusfaction to Stratton. She ended up going for the cover, and Stratton kicked out of the Stratusfaction, which that was a shock to Trish because nobody's kicked out of the Stratusfaction. So we had Trish end up climbing the top rope. She ended up going for a moonsault, and once again, Stratton got her knees up. Stratton delivered a kick to the side of Trish's head. She followed up with an Alabama slam. Stratton then went to the top. She delivered the prettiest moonsault ever onto Trish. She went for the cover, and there you go. Tiffany Stratton ended up winning the match, retaining the Women's Championship. Post-match, Stratton ended up leaving the ring, and she headed to the back. Trish Stratus was the only one in the ring. She got her moment, and the fans gave her a big pop there. Hall of Famer, legend, one of the greatest women in WWE history, one of the greatest wrestlers in WWE history. She climbed the ropes, and she celebrated with the fans. Fans were chanting, "Thank you, Trish." Which, yeah, thank you, Trish. But Trish Stratus, she's 49 years old, and she looked better than some of the women in the division. But Trish Stratus proved that she could still go, and that she still got it. But overall, the match was not that good. It was the weakest match on the show. And then we saw Alundra Blaze. She was in attendance, so it showed her. Cool to see Alundra Blaze. And Leilani Kai, also in attendance as well. So we saw them both. And then we went to the No Holds Barred match. Jade Cargill versus Naomi. The special guest referee of the match was Bianca Belair. And very good match this was. Jade Cargill took most of the bumps in this match tonight. And this match proved why Naomi is the Money in the Bank briefcase winner. So, as Jade Cargill was walking down to the ring, Naomi got out of the ring, and she kept going for a right hand to Jade. Jade delivered a right hand to Naomi. She threw Naomi into the barricade, and at this point, the bell didn't ring. So Bianca then ended up asking for them to ring the bell. Bell ended up ringing. The match got underway. Cargill threw Naomi into the steel steps. Jade then grabbed Naomi. Naomi ended up slamming Jade face first into the steel steps. Naomi then grabbed the kendo stick from under the ring. She ended up swinging the kendo stick toward Cargill, but Cargill ducked. Cargill delivered a suplex to Naomi on the outside. Cargill then ended up retrieving a table from under the ring, that Slim Jim table, and she placed the table on the outside. I think the Slim Jim logo looks so stupid on a table. But yeah, they want to get more advertisement. So Cargill ended up taking her time to set up that Slim Jim table, and that allowed Naomi to recover. Cargill grabbed Naomi, but Naomi ended up throwing Cargill face first into the ring post. Naomi then grabbed the kendo stick, and she laid in a shot to Cargill with the kendo stick. Naomi ended up pulling out weapons from under the ring. She ended up retrieving a steel chair. She threw it into the ring, and she retrieved the garbage can, which she threw the garbage can into the ring. Cargill then ended up hitting Naomi with a spear on the outside. Cargill then threw Naomi into the ring. Cargill ended up retrieving a toolbox. It was a red toolbox, and she placed the toolbox on the ring apron. Cargill got into the ring, but Naomi landed a bulldog to Cargill onto the steel chair. Naomi ended up going for the cover, and Cargill kicked out. Naomi ended up throwing Cargill shoulder first into the ring post. Naomi then went to the toolbox. She opened it up, and she pulled out a steel chain that was in there. Naomi then climbed the top rope. She wrapped the chain around Cargill's face. She pulled Cargill upwards, but Cargill ended up overpowering Naomi. Cargill ended up slamming Naomi down onto the canvas, and she grabbed the chain. She wrapped the chain around Naomi, and then she ended up hitting Naomi with the chain. And Bianca was all in disbelief in the corner. So Cargill ended up grabbing a camera from the cameraman. Of course, it was a prop camera. So she ended up hitting Naomi with the prop camera. Cargill then tossed the camera on the outside. She then took the garbage can and placed the garbage can on top of Naomi's head. Cargill then delivered a jumping kick to Naomi's face, and Naomi ended up rolling to the outside. Cargill then grabbed the toolbox, and she ended up lifting the toolbox. She threw the toolbox toward Naomi, but Naomi moved out of the way. Cargill went to the outside, and Naomi then ended up slamming Cargill into the ring apron. She then ended up slamming Cargill into the commentary table. And we saw Cargill was leaning on the side of the commentary table. Now, you all know how the commentary table looks now, where there is a monitor, on the commentary table. So Naomi ended up drop kicking Cargill into the monitor that is on the commentary table. So when she drop kicked Cargill into the monitor, sparks began to go off, on the other monitor. So Naomi ended up grabbing a table from under the ring. So Bianca then ended up going up to check on Cargill on the outside. Naomi then placed the table in the ring as Cargill slowly got into the ring. Naomi then delivered a drop kick, and we saw at points Naomi's nose was bleeding, so it looks like she had a busted nose from a shot from Cargill. So at the end of the match, we had Naomi climbing the second rope. Cargill got to her feet. She ended up hitting Naomi with a chair. Cargill ended up climbing the top rope, and she delivered Jade to Naomi through the table. Cargill ended up going for the cover, and there you go. Jade Cargill ended up winning the match. But this was a enjoyable match here. Jade Cargill picked up the win. She was taking most of the bumps in this match. Naomi was really good. And this match, with Naomi moving in it and being good, proves why she is the Money in the Bank briefcase winner. And we had a point where Cargill ended up falling backwards through the table because Naomi ended up hitting Cargill with the steel chair, and she went backwards through the table that was set up at ringside. So yeah, props to Cargill for taking all those bumps in this match. And then they announced what we're going to see tomorrow night on Monday Night Raw. We're getting a gauntlet match. Great. Another gauntlet match. LA Knight, Jey Uso, Penta, Braun Breaker, and CM Punk. They will all be in this gauntlet match. The winner of this gauntlet match will face Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship at SummerSlam. So, obviously, it's not going to be Jey Uso because we already seen how many times Jey Uso and Gunther go at it. LA Knight could be a possibility. Penta, probably not. Braun Breaker is a maybe. CM Punk, maybe, could be a maybe. I mean, it'll be good to see Knight face Gunther, Braun Breaker face Gunther, Punk face Gunther. If I had to pick one, it'll probably be CM Punk. I like to see CM Punk and Gunther at SummerSlam if Punk wins the gauntlet match tomorrow night. I think that would be a dream match. Having Punk face Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship at SummerSlam. But that's my prediction. Next was the Evolution Battle Royal. 20 women were in this. The winner of the match will receive a Women's Championship match at Clash in Paris. So we had Nikki Bella. Nikki Bella competing in a Battle Royal in 2025. We had Chelsea Green and her Secret Hervis, Piper Niven and Alba Fire. We had Natalya, Maxine Dupree. Why was Maxine Dupree in this? Maxine Dupree, nothing has changed with her in the ring. The same old. She did the stupid, awful looking caterpillar that Otis does. Still looks fucking horrendous. Yeah, Jada Parker, Lash Legend, Lola Vice, Zelina Vega, Kalani Jordan, Tatum Paxley, Izzy Dane, B-Fab. I say, why was she in this match? Michin, Ivy Nile, Candice LeRae, to which Michael Cole on commentary botched Candice LeRae's name and called her Candice Michelle. And I'm like, was Michael Cole paying attention to the match here? Obviously not. if he fucked up on saying Candice LeRae's name, calling her Candice Michelle, botching it. Nia Jax was in this. Stephanie Vaquer and Julia. And not to mention, Michael Cole botched another part in this Battle Royal on commentary. Not only did he botch calling Candice LeRae Candice Michelle, he botched the point where Alba Fire ended up delivering a suicide dive to Meechin because Meechin was eliminated, and Michael Cole was like, oh, Alba Fire sacrificed herself and, eliminated herself. No, she went through the middle rope to deliver a suicide dive to Meechin. So I'm like, yeah, Michael Cole was not paying attention to this Battle Royal. But we saw Stephanie Vaquer. She ended up doing the Devil's Kiss to Chelsea Green, which that got a big reaction from the crowd. So we had to see Devil's Kiss at a point in this match if Stephanie Vaquer is in it. We had Nikki Bella end up hitting Chelsea Green with a TKO and send her over the top rope to eliminate Chelsea Green. We had Chelsea Green at a point doing Nikki Bella's, twirl, which looked good. Somewhere Macadona was creaming his pants. Nia Jax ended up doing Nikki Bella's, twirl, which that made me want to fucking puke. So the final three were Nia Jax, Stephanie Vaquer, and Lash Legend. So in the end, Stephanie Vaquer ended up doing the Devil's Kiss to Lash Legend on the apron, and then Lash Legend just fell off of the apron and got eliminated. So Stephanie Vaquer ended up winning the Battle Royal, and she will get a Women's Championship match at Clash in Paris. So good on Stephanie Vaquer. I'm a fan of her. And post-match, we had Stephanie McMahon end up coming in to interview Stephanie Vaquer. Stephanie ended up asking in Spanish to Vaquer what this victory means to her. So Vaquer ended up responding in Spanish, and she ended up saying in English that this is difficult for her. She ended up saying that it's not her first language, and that wrestling is her first language. Stephanie Vaquer ended up getting emotional. She ended up thanking Stephanie McMahon and every woman before them. She ended up saying for that reason, they can make history. Vaquer ended up saying that Evolution is the biggest moment of her career. She ended up saying that she promises she will keep working hard because you will remember her name forever. And that was what Stephanie Vaquer had to say. Stephanie Vaquer's English is pretty good. And really, I'm happy that she is getting a shot at the Women's Championship in Clash in Paris. I think this is a big moment for Vaquer heading into Clash in Paris. She's going to be very good. But overall, really happy for Stephanie Vaquer. Main event, Rhea Ripley versus Io Sky. This is for the Women's World Championship. Very good main event this was. In my opinion, this is the best women's match of the year with Rhea and Io Sky. Just the crowd was really into this match. Rhea Ripley has not pinned Io in her career. So the match ended up getting on the way. We had Rhea end up staring across the ring at Io. Both women end up locking up. Rhea ended up backing Io into the corner. Io ended up going to the bottom turnbuckle, and she ended up twisting Rhea around. Io ended up wrenching Rhea's arm, but Rhea ended up stomping on Io's foot, and she wrenched Io's arm. Io ended up rolling through to escape, and she ended up pinning a headlock takeover to Rhea. Rhea then quickly grapevined Io's head, but Io ended up getting out. Rhea then ended up pinning a headlock takeover, but Io grapevined Rhea's head. Both women ended up delivering some quick takedowns. Io then ended up hitting a snapmare to Rhea. She ended up going for the cover. Rhea kicked out. Rhea ended up going for a snapmare of her own, but Io landed on her feet. So both women circled the ring. They then locked up again. Io ended up doing a stand switch out of a waistlock. Rhea then ended up sending Io into the corner, and she ended up keeping Io trapped there in the corner. Rhea ended up feeding a punch. Io ended up covering up, so Rhea then mocked Io. We had Io end up landing on the apron because Rhea ended up putting Io in the electric chair. Io landed on the apron, and she ended up kicking Rhea back. Io ended up hitting a side moonsault. Io ended up getting Rhea in the ring. She headed to the top rope. Io ended up diving onto Rhea's shoulders, and she ended up rolling her up, to which Rhea ended up kicking out. Rhea started to fight back, but Io ended up pulling her down and applied a crossface. Rhea ended up fighting up. She elbowed out of the crossface. Io ended up hitting a drop toe hold into the ropes to Rhea. She ended up doing a 619 into a head scissor DDT on the apron, which was great. To which the crowd was chanting, "Women's wrestling, women's wrestling." So Io ended up sizing Rhea up on the apron. She ended up charging. Rhea ended up lifting Io up. Io slid off, and she ended up decking Rhea with a punch. Io then ended up slinging Rhea's leg onto the ropes, but Rhea responded with a knee to her face, and then she ended up launching Io into the commentary table. Rhea then grabbed Io at ringside and whipped her into the LED barricade. Rhea then ended up bouncing Io off the steps, and she ended up putting Io in the ring. Rhea then ended up hitting a backbreaker. She then ended up hitting a front suplex on the top rope. She ended up going for the cover, to which Io ended up kicking out. So later on, we had Rhea end up crotching Io on the top rope. She ended up hitting a Razor's Edge, just like Damian Priest. So Rhea then followed it up with a sit-out powerbomb to Io. She ended up going for the cover, and Io kicked out. Rhea was just infuriated. So Io ended up going for a springboard missile dropkick, but Rhea moved out of the way, and she ended up hitting Jessica Carr, who was the referee of the match. So Rhea then headbutted Io. She ended up hitting the Riptide. She went for the cover. Of course, Jessica Carr was still knocked out. So we had Rhea and Io end up going into the crowd. We had Io end up climbing on top of the stacked road crates, and she ended up hitting Rhea with a cross body block to the floor, which was great. So in the end, we had Rhea end up climbing the ropes. She was on the top rope. Io countered with a Spanish fly off the top, which was great. So both Io and Rhea were down. And this led to Naomi heading out to the ring. Naomi ended up cashing in the Money in the Bank briefcase, making the match a triple threat. So Io was waiting for Naomi to hit her with the briefcase, but Naomi wasn't ready. Naomi then ended up decking Io with the briefcase. Naomi then ended up attacking Rhea and sent her into the ring post. And Naomi had her nose taped up because, of course, it was bloodied earlier in the No Holds Barred match with Jade Cargill. So we had Naomi end up hitting Io with a split-legged moonsault. She ended up going for the cover, and there you go. Naomi ended up winning the match, and Naomi is your new Women's World Champion, which is awesome. Big moment for Naomi tonight. So she ended up celebrating as Pyro ended up going off. And I like the outcome of this. Naomi as the new Women's World Champion. Good that she cashed it in tonight, because a lot of people thought that she would be cashing it in at SummerSlam. Obviously, that wasn't the case. But good moment for Naomi. Glad that she is the Women's World Champion. And just by the no-holds-barred match that we saw earlier with her and Jade Cargill, you could tell, like I said, that Naomi, was good to hold the Money in the Bank briefcase. But really am looking forward to seeing what WWE is going to do with Naomi now that she's the new Women's World Champion. But this was good. Overall, Evolution, great show was, in my opinion, this is the best WWE PLE of the year. And it was a lot better than WrestleMania. And this Evolution was a lot better than the 2018 one. So, thumbs up show this was tonight. But anyway, that's it for my review of Evolution. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoy this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all later.